So we got about 3 more minutes, so we'll get people time to get in before we get started here. Thanks for those of you that have taken the time to be part of this focus group. Claudia, you guys going to have a brief presentation that we want to make sure you get host rights for, or we just, okay. All right. So Linda, if you'll make sure that Claudia has host and share privileges here in a minute, that would be great.
She is set up to share.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, my clock says it's 3:30, so we'll kick this party off. I'm Corey Styron. I'm the Director of Community Services. I want to thank you today for joining us for a conversation about Pueblo Canyon. And we're focused on this conversation about Pueblo Canyon for some trail development, some possible bicycle skills park in there. This has morphed from a ski hill, a mountain bike resort up on the ski hill, to looking at a flow trail. We're really, Pueblo Canyon is the last bastion that we can look at for this to be a part of our community in. There is a small piece of an equestrian access off of the stables area down into Bio Canyon as part of this practice as well. We have Linda Lindstrom and Catherine Hudspeth from our CSD team. They're helping us work with this. We also have Claudia Horn and Patrick Sinnott with our design professional. They're going to do a brief presentation and ask you a bunch of questions. This is focus group 1. We've got 6 this week. There'll be a final presentation at the Parks and Rec Board on Thursday evening. This is not the only time for input. This is the first time for input. We're really today is idea generation day. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Claudia and Patrick. And again, thank you all so much for attending.
Thanks, Corey, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. We, like Corey said, are part of design office. I did want to point out a couple of our other team members. We have Tony Boone Trails. Tony Boone is the principal. He's got over 635 miles of trails that he's constructed, and has served both in the construction side of things with trails and maintenance, as well as in the public side of things, working for the city of Boulder. He also helped contribute to IMBA Trail Solutions Guide to Single Track. So he's got a wealth of experience and is on our team. We also have Chinook John Altschuld. He's been doing some drone mapping of the areas of Pueblo Canyon. And then specifically for the Bike Skills Park, we've got Jeff Lehman from McGill Trails. So there again, they do both design and construction. And I think that's something that with the work that we're doing, even though this portion of the project is dominantly planning, I think our team's background in construction allows us to really look at the site and determine the feasibility and the costs associated with implementing this thing, because we know that's kind of the end goal on all of this. For running this meeting, I'm going to just give a brief overview of the project and our scope and schedule and what we kind of learned from the analysis, and then we'll open it up to just listening to you in terms of your questions and concerns. Because of the number of the people on the Zoom meeting, we're going to ask that everybody put their names in the chat room and convey all of their questions and concerns through the chat. It'll make it a little just easier for everybody to see what's going on, if that works. So to give a brief overview, we were asked by, or were selected as part of an open RFP to look at a 7-mile trail within Pueblo Canyon that is specifically IMBA green blue level, to look at a location for a bike skills park with progressive jump lines and drop areas, also IMBA green blue, a NICA route, or a location where you could have a NICA sanctioned event with 2 to 3 loops off of a long trail, a staging area for that kind of a setup. And then finally, an equestrian connector trail that connects the North Mesa stables into Bio Canyon. So what we're going to be doing is looking at conceptual routes and layouts, looking at additional amenities that you all might want at various locations, at the entry points along the trail. We're going to be putting together some estimated costs for construction of these components, providing maintenance recommendations for both short-term and long-term, and then incorporating public input as part of all of this. So at this point, we really are pretty much at the beginning. Our team was on site in November trying to get in some site analysis with drones and on the ground mapping before any kind of weather hit. We knew that January might be a little bit tough. I wish it were tougher. Wish we had more snow, but in any case, we've got pretty good mapping now of the 7-mile trail and the bike skills park areas. So while we haven't done any conceptual layouts yet, that's something that we'll be doing. And you may see Jeff Lehman from McGill Trails is planning on being out sometime in February to do the on the ground kind of analysis for the bike skills park. So with that, I'm gonna just give you a little bit, oh, let me connect here, share my screen. I'm gonna give you a little bit of an overview of what we, excuse me just a second. What we found given our scope. So if everybody can see this screen, this is the slope analysis of this portion of Los Alamos County. You can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but what we've been tasked is the 7 mile is going to connect in somewhere by the aquatic center, and should connect up to the Y on the east side. So as our team was collecting data, they looked at various routes. One of them was along the rim. Their recommendation was that for a green-blue, we actually drop pretty quickly down into the canyon and utilize some of the existing trails that are down in the canyon and connect back into the Y. So that's for the 7 mile loop. For the bike skills park, let me bring this up here. Oh, it is this one, actually. So this is a little bit of a close-up of the bike skills park area. The analysis illustrated that this spot by the aquatic center was actually the most viable for doing a progressive skills park, just because it's a little bit larger and the terrain, I think, is set up better for the kind of skills park that we're imagining. I think this is part of what our information gathering is from these focus group meetings, is what exactly is desired within the bike skills park. The area off of Orange Street is another location that we looked at and mapped. So while it's a little bit smaller, the grades are a little bit more challenging there. We think that could be used for some bike skills locations, like a pump track or something, but that's something that once we get a little bit of feedback, we can figure out what's the best location for various of these features. For the NICA routes, our analysis indicates that most likely the best place for a staging area for NICA is actually going in the canyon off of the Y, and somewhere around here where my cursor is would be an adequate staging area that would give us access to a couple of loops and be able to meet some of the NICA route requirements with a passing lane. Just there's a couple of requirements that are prescriptive for NICA races. So our team thought that this was actually the best location for that staging to happen, rather than up in the canyon by the schools. Okay. So with that sort of overview, our schedule, just like I kind of mentioned, we've done some initial analysis. Jeff will be here in early February to look at the skills park. We're planning on having conceptual designs for these various programs by end of February, beginning of March, so that we can conduct a public meeting to present these conceptual designs in March, and then finalize that in a draft plan in April. So that's sort of our larger overview of schedule. So we can have that ready to go by, I believe, end of April or early May. So with that, I am going to just open it up to the floor to anybody who's interested in weighing in on this or has any questions. So let me stop my share here.
So we've got a question from Cheryl. What exactly is involved in trail development for these activities?
So Cheryl, if I understand your question exactly, what?
I
Well,
can make it more clear if you want. Right now, there are a myriad of trails back there that are footpaths, and there is a connection with an old 2-lane dirt road. All of those are used frequently by pedestrians and hikers and walkers, occasionally by mountain bikers, and they are not maintained or developed. They don't have banked turns and jumps. They are a natural environment. And I'm wondering what exactly, I mean, I've seen mountain bike parks and mountain bike areas up at the ski hill. If you're going to build a bunch of jumps in there, you're going to pave it, or you're going to put some banked turns in there, you're going to take trees out, then I think the community needs to have a very good picture of how you're going to invade that space to develop or build or make multi-purpose access through that pristine area. So that's my question. What exactly are you planning to do? And my related question is, who decided that this was, who asked you to do this in the first place? Was this a community request, or is this, you know, a bicycle club's idea? So those are my related questions about
well,
what are you planning to do back there, and why do we need to do anything back there?
So I'll answer your second question first, because we responded to this this scope as part of an RFP or an RFQ that was put out by Los Alamos County. So they established the scope of the trail and the bike skills park. So what we're doing is in response to that on behalf of Los Alamos County. Now, I will say that public input is part of that. So it's you know, that's the starting point, and we'll incorporate public input in our designs. As far as the designs go, we are looking at this from a conceptual level completely. And so at this point, I can't quite say like, well, what is that trail gonna look like? We typically, with these sorts of trails, imagine that it's going to be designed or modified slightly in a way that is sustainable, so that it's lower maintenance for the county and for the community, and that anything that has features in it will be in a designated space that has signage, so that somebody just riding down is not going to encounter a feature that's going to be problematic for them, but that it's really like the bike skills park is going to be a contained park. All of our designs will come back, like I mentioned, and present this at a public meeting, so people will be able to weigh in on our proposals. I hope that answered your questions.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question. I wonder what the motivation for this change is, because having been a 51-year resident of Los Alamos, the thing I love most about it is that it's not developed like this, that it doesn't become a Moab. Because if it became a Moab, I would be gone in a heartbeat. So I'm wondering, is the motivation that we want to bring in a lot more business, a lot more bicyclists who stay in our not developed hotels and in our no restaurants? Or what is the motivation behind this? I guess that's my basic question. I love hiking the trails. I've done it for 51 years. Georgia, I see, is on here. She was born here. The trails are so incredibly important to us and not developed into anything, but just trails. Thank you.
So I'll start that. This is trying to pull a number of projects that have stopped and started over the past several years. One of them was being the desire by a community for a flow trail. This is not an exact flow trail for elevation change, but there was a desire from community members to have a long trail. It was originally looked at in Pueblo Canyon. That one wasn't going to happen. They looked at Pueblo Canyon and they soon realized that they didn't have enough funding to look at a long trail. The second part is there's been on the CIP list for a number of years a skills park for our youth. That is part of this. I inherited the list. I don't know exactly who it came from, but the skills park was on that list. During the initial conversations, we also found out that we have 50 members of our youth population that are members of this National Interscholastic Cycling Association, NICA, that do not have a place to practice for their events. And that was also a desire to provide them a place that we could have a junior high and a high school track for them to practice on, and potentially bring in some regional tournaments here. They wouldn't have to go away all the time. There's also been community conversation about a linkage from San Ildefonso across town. So you wouldn't have to use Diamond Drive as a way to get across town. That would be nice mobility. And then the last one was the desire by members of the equestrian community to have a better accessible trail, specifically from behind the stables down into the canyon. There's been some concern about the other one being a little dicey. So we packaged all those up. This was presented to the Parks and Rec Board. They were supportive of moving forward with this. So this is where we're at now, is getting the feedback.
Thank you, Corey. I understand. I'm a member of the equestrian community. I'm a member of the hiking community. And I just want to see part of our old place, our place to hike without bicycles. No, I'm not saying without bicycles. I understand bicycles. I'd like a place where we don't have to be developed. I just want to remain what it was a long time ago. And I think what is a major attraction to people here, that it's not a Moab. I don't want a Moab. Thank you.
I kind of agree with the statement that we want access to the trails. I certainly don't mind sharing trails with horses and bicycles. It's the development that concerns me. Right now that there's a lot of wildlife down there, and there's some archaeological sites and so forth. I guess my reason for joining this committee was right now you're not supposed to drive back in there. And I thought it would be nice to have a parking space by the concrete bridge where another parking space where you could put a few cars and people could spread out from there, thus not having everybody on that paved road hiking up the hill with the cars coming from the sewage treatment plant, you know, the trucks coming along. The guys are pretty good, you know, at slowing down when they see us walking with the dogs and stuff, but it, you know, I think if we had two spaces, it would spread people out. I'm looking to kind of find some way to let people have access to the canyon, but in such a way that you don't have to run into everybody all at once. That road that goes up through Pueblo Canyon is used a lot for hikers. You know, if it becomes I don't know what the number of usage would be for the bicyclists. If there were dozens of people coming down on it, that would change things quite a bit.
Well, if that water doesn't taste quite right, use the Berkey.
I'm sorry, what?
Who's speaking, please?
Damien, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Well, then if nobody's going to speak, I will respond to Melissa's. I've hiked here for 51 years. I've ridden here on horses. I've used the trails in a very ecological way. My use of the trails has been on foot or on 4 feet. And I must say, I have seen a total degradation of the trails over the last many years, since the 1980s, I'd say. And it breaks my heart. I mean, I love the naturalness, and I don't want to see our trails developed into parks and things and jumping things and racing things. I just want a piece of this county to remain a natural environment.
So I'll try Damien one more time. Damien, you've got your hand up. If not, Katie, I see your hand up. So Katie, you want to go?
Oops. Yeah, hi. I am the director of the Pajarito Environmental Education Center. We're contracted to run the Los Alamos Nature Center for the County of Los Alamos. And we have a lot of field trips of kids coming from all over northern New Mexico to visit the Nature Center. And every field trip that comes, we take that group of kids to Kinnicknick Park to walk around. We have different activities that they do there, identifying different plants and animals, looking for all kinds of things. And I'm not sure, are you saying that the skills park may be located in Kinnicknick Park? And if so, I don't see how that can coexist with the use that we have for Kinnicknick Park.
So I'm gonna bring this up again, because I think we're looking at an area that is lower down in the canyon.
The canyon is on both sides.
It's hard to tell since we can't zoom in.
Yeah, I think Kinnicknick Park is behind the aquatic center, like at the same level as the aquatic center.
Right, Kinnicknick
And
Park is up on the
northwest.
top behind
Yeah.
it, whereas the area is
So-
down below.
Exactly.
Okay, so that would be the area where we take all of our after school kids clubs and summer camps and all kinds of things. So we definitely use that area down below a lot as well. Not quite as much as Kinnicknick Park, but and
Okay.
yeah, and I also want to give a little hat tip to Bob Walker, who is one of our peak people, talking about the bird habitat down there. It's really, you know, there've been some incredibly rare species. Bob can say much more than I can, but that live in that area.
And I, you know, one of the things to point out in the exhibit that I just brought up was that the red kind of outline is just sort of a much larger footprint than most likely is needed. So certainly we can look at a way that, you know, or consider, is there a way that we can have an area of that be a skills park and keep a portion of it, maybe a buffer with native habitat.
Can you explain why the skills park wouldn't be located like on North Mesa by the stables where it was going to be before? I mean, in an area that's already been disturbed, is not a habitat, et cetera.
You know, that's something that we've just been asked to to consider these two locations. We haven't been asked to do an overall kind of where's the best location for this. So I can't really speak to that. That's something that that Corey is going to need to weigh in on, why these were sort of narrowed down to these two locations.
So we've got Mrs. Cloran next.
Change my hand. I had the same question because I thought that we were going to do this over at Quaggy Mesa where you would have ample parking because my son's on the bike team, and when we come in and we have practices, you have a lot of bikes that also bring a lot of vehicles. So there's going to need a big lot. But that was my question as well, is why Quaggy, you know, it was started, there's big mounds of dirt, and then it all just stopped. So.
Oh, I can
I see-
answer that, by the way. That's the BMX track.
Okay, so something completely different, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
But the skills,
I just wondered if it, I mean, it seems like that would be the spot. I see it from both sides. I want things preserved, but I also think the kids need a spot to do this.
Okay, Mr. Walker?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So, yes, I do have concerns, and I am a volunteer with NICA. I'm also formally have been associated in past years with the Park and Rec Board. So I understand a little bit of how this process works. I guess I was on the Park and Rec Board at the time in the past when the Nature Center was proposed as one of the community capital improvement projects for the community. And I've been volunteering with them ever since. The community in Los Alamos of people who hike and bird, and let me just focus on the birding part of it for a second, is very active. Los Alamos being, even in spite of the fact that it's one of the smallest counties in the state, is third in the state in the number of people who actively submit checklists to a citizen science project that records bird sightings. The area from Kinnikinnick Park down Ranch School Trail, I put this in the chat earlier, but all the way down to the confluence of the Pueblo and Acid Canyons, and then less so until you get all the way out to the Pueblo Canyon sewer water treatment outfall. All of that is the prime spring migration habitat in the county of Los Alamos. There is no better. We've had several birds that have been sighted there. Even in the last, we just completed a 5-year project to assemble observations of all of the breeding birds in Los Alamos County. And the area down there is the most important spring, and the birds are arriving because they're getting ready to bed down and raise chicks for the year. So I am especially concerned about the impact that this will have. So that's why I asked, are we going to have an environmental impact statement so that this could be looked at in a organized fashion? I'm all in favor of developing things for the kids, but I think for 50 children to participate in an activity at the high school cannot be easily measured today by me in any case. against thousands of people who are engaged in hiking and birding activities. So anyway, I'm looking for a reason not to be irrevocably against the whole concept. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tabor?
Yeah, I want to throw in a little something here, just so we understand. Many of us were born here, we live here, we've grown up here, we've gone to Los Alamos schools. We have our children in Los Alamos schools. We are taxpayers, business owners, and we are mountain bikers, hikers, rock climbers. So no one in this county has more of a voice than anyone else in this county. So we understand that people want specific activities and things. There are more than 5,000 mountain bikers in Los Alamos County. There's more than 12,000 hikers and walkers, right? So when we look at it, this has already gone through the county council for more than 6 years. The money has already been allocated. It's actually in danger of going into various categorizations and fallbacks and such, because the money that was already allocated and agreed upon by the county, voted on, and set aside for this purpose has not been utilized in more than 3.5 years. So the canyons we're talking about are literally waste dumps, and they have been vetted by the lab and the EPA as such, okay? Bio Canyon was a target range for artillery with depleted uranium. The canyon in Pueblo Canyon was an acid dump, and it has the sewer line going down the bottom of it. So we're not talking about disturbing anything in any way that is pristine. Second of all, we are putting in trails which already exist. What we're doing is we're putting in sustainable trails that are safer and more enjoyable for people to use. Every trail in Los Alamos is already hiked and mountain biked. I personally put in thousands of volunteer hours maintaining these trails on my own time with my own tools and equipment. All of these trails were restored after the fire and the various floods and various things that we've had using volunteer labor in the county to do so. If you all remember, our only paid trail person was Craig Martin, okay? Now we've got Eric, now we've got Corey, we're growing it, right? It's expanding outward, but that took significant action in the subcommittees. So I want everybody to kind of understand the basis here. The mountain biking community, as well as the trail running community and the hiking community, demand better trails in Los Alamos for our tax dollars. So that's where we're starting at this level.
May I ask a question of Tabor?
Yeah.
What do you mean by better trails? What's a sustainable trail to you? Is that a paved trail?
No.
Is
no,
that a
you
wide trail
guys-
where the rocks are removed, or
No,
just
you guys
removing
walk and
trees?
hike on them. What I'm saying with a sustainable trail is a trail that requires minimal maintenance and upkeep due to the forces of erosion and use. For instance, Perimeter Trail is so heavily concentrated with users right now because the other trails are fairly deficient that it's eroding simply from people utilizing it. And we have this data. We actually collect it. We know how many people are using it. So what I want everybody to understand is we're losing our resources because they're so concentrated and not spread out into some of these areas.
So what do you propose to do to develop a dirt footpath? Are you paving this? Are you putting gravel down?
So in Pueblo Canyon, there is a 3-part trail. The first part was started by Craig. The second part and the third parts are started by Eric.
This is fucking bewildering.
Right? And so if you look at this, we started a plan 6 years ago to put in a flow trail that starts at the top of Pipeline and ends at the Y. There is a small section of it that would go down Pueblo. Originally, we wanted to go down Bio. People disagreed with that. So the next best location was down Pueblo. This would utilize Forest Service land. This would utilize county land, even Santa Fe County, on and on. And this has taken years and years and years to go through. So we're just talking about a trail. We're not talking about a highway. We're not talking about something even a third as wide as the dirt road that already goes down. What we're talking about is something usable and sustainable.
Can we see if we can get Damien on here now? Damien had his hand up for a while. We're having problems and.
Oh, yeah.
Want to see if we can get them. So Damien, the floor is yours.
Much I appreciate it. Yeah, it seems like technical difficulties. Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to the other participants in this meeting, and it seems like the biggest gripe is that there's going to be changes made. Specifically, we're going to become a Moab, or we're going to destroy our natural trails. And I must be misunderstanding what the goal of this was. I didn't realize that we were changing all of the trails throughout Los Alamos to attract those who ride in Moab. It was my understanding we were working on a trail and improvements to the trail system in general. And as a hiker and also as a cyclist, the trails need assistance. They need love. They need improvement. They need repair. There's massive degradation of the trail systems that I see from all the equestrians, as well as from all the people that are working, that are now running and hiking that we've seen during the pandemic. So I certainly think that there needs to be improvements made to the trails. In addition to 50 years ago, there were no such things really as a mountain biker. So I certainly think appealing to people that may not have lived here 50 years ago, but don't like the fact that they're, to appeal to people that do live here now is important. There are certainly far less equestrians in this community than there are cyclists and hikers. And yet, there are fewer facilities available to cyclists than there are to other folk. So
may I respond?
Are you finished with your, let's see if Damon's finished with his comment first.
Sure, I can be finished. I have no doubt what this response will be, but sure, I can be finished. Thank you so much.
Okay. And then let me get a hold of Ms. Franklin first, then I'll come back to you, June. Okay, so Ms. Franklin, you had your hand up.
Start the video.
Thanks, Corey.
Oh,
So no problem. My wife, Sid, and I, we actually moved to Los Alamos just over a month ago. And we moved here specifically because of the mountain biking. So we race mountain bikes professionally. We've raced and ridden all over the world. Some of our favorite trails are in this area. And
Both at Pajarito and in town.
yeah. And that's why, we want to be involved with helping create additional trails. What we've seen be very successful in other communities around the US and the world is creating these additional trails, which then provide more places for people to ride, for people to hike, for people to ride horses. And then we end up spreading out. And so there are fewer trail conflicts, more people being sort of taught how to use the trails respectfully is a big part of it. And there's, we've got great yield signs on many of the trails around here saying that bikes yield to pedestrians and equestrians. And I think just helping people learn the rules of the trail usage is great, but also providing more trails for everyone to be able to spread out just leads to everyone having more trails that they can use, and then fewer trail conflicts between different trail
As
categories.
well as trails that are helpful for kids who are getting into it. A lot of the trails around here, like they're trails that we really love riding on, but they might not be ideal for a beginner or for kids. And, these are kids who are growing up in this community, and hopefully, 20 years from now, they'll be the people on these calls who are caring about the trails and are invested. And I just would like to address a little bit the point about Moab. We've spent a lot of time in Moab. It is a wonderful place. I really don't feel like there's any danger whatsoever of Los Alamos turning into Moab or anything similar to it. Moab has dumped a massive amount of money into the tourism industry with the specific goal of attracting a specific type of mountain biker, as well as ATV and all of that. So a lot of the things that people here might find really repulsive about Moab, I think are somewhat done intentionally, and I don't see any danger of that happening here. You know, it really has been, they've really pushed motorized sports in Moab, which doesn't seem like that's even on the table here. So I think there's definitely an opportunity for, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I guess we just wanted to pipe in and say that we're really happy to be here. We love the trails here, and we would love to see this project go forward and have better options, especially for the NICA team here. So
Thank you. Okay, June.
I want to respond to Damien, who I'm sorry. I've gotten so lost in the conversation, but I need to say that for 51 years, the trails have been just a wonderful escape from the work ethic and stress. And I'd enjoyed them for many, many years as a hiker and then as an equestrian. And I have found that the trail use is not that for me anymore. It's become more of a stressor than a relaxer. And that makes me sad. And as far as the last couple who were talking about Moab, I understand the county's desire to bring in more people and more economy to this county. And I understand that. But I was in Moab in 1960s and 1970s when it was a quiet, wonderful little town. And I have an article now that I was going to bring out, but I didn't do it before this. I have an article from the people of Moab saying, we hate it here now. We hate Moab. We want to leave Moab because it's not the place that we loved years ago. And I don't want to leave Los Alamos. I love Los Alamos. I love this isolation of being on a trail. I don't want this place to become a Moab. End of story. Thank you.
May I speak?
Yeah, just a second. I just want to remind everyone, all of these items that we're talking about were generated from our local users. These are not a tourist company coming in here or the Tourism Implementation Task Force. These were requested by people like yourselves that have an interest. So there is no ulterior motive to make us Moab. We're just trying to answer requests from the community in this conversation. So Ms. Bartlett.
Yes. I'd just like to say that I don't actually object to making more trails for people. I think there may be ways to do that that will allow people to spread out. I really feel kind of strongly about this, or I really question the skills park, and I sort of represent about five, there's probably 5 of us that hike together, and we really wonder about the skills parks part of it, and wonder, especially if it requires parking and parents dropping off kids and things like that, that they might need a specialized space. I don't know if there's anything on DP Road or out near the stables, or it sounds to me it doesn't necessarily have to be in the woods in a natural environment. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm envisioning something sort of like the BMX park where you build certain things that kids can practice riding their bikes on. And it seems like they should be able to have that. We have, Los Alamos has accommodated the interests of many different people here, such as golfers and equestrians and dog trainers and yada, yada, which is one of the charms of the town. I just wonder about the advisability of putting skills park in the middle of areas that may be somewhat environmentally sensitive. In Tabor West, it may be that there's acid dumps and things in the canyon, but there are also migratory birds, you know, no doubt about it, we see them. And it would be a shame to, you know, disrupt the natural wildlife that is there.
Thank you. Mrs. Ho or How?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, so it's been really interesting listening to everyone's comments here. I appreciate getting to be here. I'm primarily a trail runner. And so I'm super excited about an idea of more trails, greater extent of trails. But what confuses me a little listening to this plan is it seems like you're talking about trails in an area where, from my perspective, there are already very good trails. And there are a lot of other areas around town where I would love to see connections put in or greater extent of options. So it seems to me that it would be great to improve our trail system, but I'm not seeing the strong case for why this location is ideal, especially given what other people have pointed out about it being particularly important habitat and there being other locations that are less important habitat for wildlife. That's it.
Okay, Damien, back to you, unless your hand's still raised. Go ahead.
No, thank you so much. So I also question, while I would love for there to be a skill park here, and this perhaps can be a conversation that I have with Tabor as to, and the folk that are vested in it being there. I'm also curious as to why it's there. Regarding kind of a continued conversation about, you know, this place isn't the same it used to be, and I don't want it to be this. I really, again, have to offer a rebuttal that, you know, you're not the only person living here. And in 50 years, the demographics change, and you would really hope that people would understand that everybody in the community should have the opportunity to do the things they enjoy. And if you wanna make sure that those trails and everything else stay there and stay appreciated, it's a good idea to make sure that the young people who need to use those feel welcome to use those trails. And somebody saying, you know, I don't feel safe on there, I don't feel like it's what it used to be. Well, no, certainly not, because there are other people there who are also out there trying to enjoy the trails. They're just not out there enjoying them in the same way that perhaps you think they should, or perhaps you do. But accommodating them and making sure that they do enjoy it assures that those trails will be appreciated for years to come, and also breeds an appreciation for the outdoors in general. If you don't make people feel welcome outdoors, they're not going to go outdoors. And, you know, leading this back into something ridiculous, you don't encourage children to be outside exercising. Well, all you'll see is just another precipitous rise in children being obese and unhealthy. And that's all I got.
All right, Mackie Franklin, I think you were next, and then you disappeared. Did you have a comment? I saw your hand up.
Sorry, please let Tabor go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Tabor.
Yeah, I wanted to address a few things. Like Maura had a question there about the trails. So interestingly, your question is valid. And what this came from is when I was working years ago with Craig Martin to finish the trail system in Pueblo Canyon that was never finished. So the trail only goes less than half of the way up, and then you have to traverse up and down the sewer line dirt road, which frequently washes out and is fairly deep, pumicey gravel. So the intention was always to finish the trail so that it connects just up underneath the Aquatic Center and the Jewish Center right there. So this is not a new concept in any way, shape, or form. Now, it is a connector to a much larger trail that we have been planning with the Forest Service, Fish and Game, who, by the way, are the ones who regulate spotted owls and other such creatures in the canyon. And I'm the first person to ever photograph one for the Forest Service back in 1988, by the way. under contract for them. That was my summer job. So the concept here is what Damien's talking about. Now, the bike park, the skills park, the original location of that was supposed to be near the stables, and people in the stables complained about the possibility of having bicycles next to the stables. Now, of course, this is irrelevant. Bicycles were here at the same time horses were here up here in the Manhattan Project too. But then they said, okay, hey, the old sewer treatment plant is down by Bridges in the canyon, and it is a EPA brownfield site. The federal government will give us money to remediate that space into something else besides a large dirt parking lot. So that's the reason that has been looked at. That doesn't mean it has to go there. That's just the reason that it's being considered there, because we have changing facilities and a parking lot at both the high school and over at the aquatic center that are owned by the county. The buses also stop there, so it's a very convenient central location, whereas anything out there on the mesas, I'm sure Sid and Mackie understand this right now too, it's a little ways out. You got to drive a ways to get over there. But the idea here with the Pueblo Canyon Trail specifically is to finish the project that was started years ago and do it correctly. And that means a properly designed trail with flow. Now, trails that flow for bikes also flow beautifully for trail runners. However, they're not necessarily suitable for hikers because runners and bikes move a lot faster than hikers do. So the idea is to have several options, being that the trail going down is a downhill trail and the other trail that exists gets continued to be the uphill slower trail. So that's part of the logic in designing this out. So I'll field the floor there.
Thank you. Georgia, I see your hand up.
Okay, I just have a question that the consultant breezed by that the old sewage treatment plant was too small or something like that. But as Tabor just mentioned, that's where I think the best place would be and the least impact on the rest of the users of the trail system and the area behind the aquatic center, Connect Park area, the extended Connect Park area back there. So, and that sort of like fell off the radar screen. Also, I would like to see what this community that's here at this focus group thinks about the electric mountain bikes. And will this, we have a non-motorized policy on our trails in the county, but I don't know if electric mountain bikes fall into this and I know that other connecting trails to other parts where there's Forest Service and other trails that will be coming, from, like the Rio Grande Trail, when something like that happens, they're thinking about allowing the electric mountain bike. So what do you all, think about electric mountain bikes? Because those would be using this whole trail system. Also, I'm supportive of connecting the trail connections because I kind of make them work anyway when I go from uptown aquatic center area over to North Mesa. And also the trail that people tend to not find is the beautiful trail that Craig Martin did build that bypasses the need to go down that skiddery slope that washes out into Pueblo Canyon from Walnut Canyon, following the utility line. There's another trail that you can take, and I think it's a beautiful trail, very nice and really, really nicely built. So I use that one. It's a little bit longer, but it's way nicer than going down the utility road. Thank you.
All right, see Tabor, I see your hand re-raised.
Yeah, I'm gonna address the electric bicycle portion. First of all, I'm an engineer and a bicycle designer, and I'm also a service disabled veteran. And I am a former professional bike racer. And my e-bike is what allows me to ride. So as the person who does a significant amount of the maintenance on the trails that you all use, e-bikes will not be banned anywhere in New Mexico in public land, and I will take it to the Supreme Court if I have to. And by the way, they are speed limited. They are not any faster than a normal bicycle, and most of us now ride them.
Again, it's a new technology that we need to evaluate, and there's positives and negatives around all of them. But some of us old folks are using those to re-engage with our youth and cycle. So,
all right, and anyone who would like to learn anything about them, contact me, and I will be absolutely happy to show you.
May I make a quick comment?
yes, go ahead, June.
Having ridden my horses on the trails, they got used to mountain bike tires. And then when the great big fat tires came out, I had to really control my horse. That horse was not used to the sound of the big fat tires that I don't know. And I'm not riding anymore, but I can imagine that I'd have to get really used to the e-bikes. Horses are very sensitive to any changes in sounds or whatever. So the limited places where we get off the mesa are very, could be and are very dangerous to us because of the different sounds and the different ways that big fat tires sound next to regular mountain bike tires. Thank you.
I guess Claudia and Patrick, we're kind of getting towards the end of our time here. Was there something, I mean, you've got a lot of great information. Is there something that's triggered that you guys would like to ask the group to get more info on? And then
Well, thanks, Corey. Yeah, and this has been great. It's good to hear. It's nice to hear that we have people representing all different kinds of user groups, which is great. One of the things I just wanted to just quickly share is the location of the spotted owl habitat. So you can see the pink area. That's the map location of spotted owl. So it's lower down in the canyon, but that's one extent that's closer to town, and then there's another one that's further away. Just so you have that information. It's new information for us to hear that there's an alternate location for the bike skills park that would be considered further away from town. And in launching or beginning to work on this project, had been looking at sites that were closer to the high school and the middle school, with the understanding that that proximity was important both to the schools and existing recreation areas, rather than something that was further away. So if that's something that is something that we should look at, we can certainly look at it, but it's kind of a new thing. I don't know if you have any questions or comments, Patrick, that you wanted to add.
May I add
I don't,
something?
it's been, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I can't get my little electric computer hand to go up, but just to respond to Claudia, a skills park actually would be right near the middle school if it's out on North Mesa. So it's not really far away from the middle school. It's a couple blocks away, right there. So
oh, okay. So I'm thinking of
we're not moving it out of the county. It's still very centrally located.
Okay. I'm thinking of a different location then, the one that's off to the east. So I guess I would need to look on the map to see
Yeah.
which
Anyway,
one you're talking about.
it's feasible for location, I would.
Okay. Thanks.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, it's been very informative and I really appreciate listening to everybody's comments. So thank you for all your passionate responses. And obviously this isn't the last time we'll be seeking your comments and stuff as well. We have still a lot of investigation to do with the team and such. So we'll look forward to hearing more from you all.
So I want to thank everyone for your time. We do have a project page on the main county calendar for CSD projects. Once we, probably tomorrow, this video with the transcript of the chat will be there. So you can go back and look at. We also have this has been done as closed captioning. So that information will be there as well. Again, this is number one of several times to have conversation.
One other thing, Corey, if I could just point out, for those who are interested in Bike Skills Park, wherever it may be, if you're interested in providing input on what the design of that looks like, we have a brief survey that we've put together that if you can just in the chat, give us your email address that we could send you a link to the survey so you can respond to that. That would be really, really helpful as our designer starts to look at that.
We've got their email address. We can send it to you, Claudia, directly. So unless you
Okay.
just want to chat.
Thank you.
We can make sure that everyone gets that info that was here and that also signed up.
Great.
So again, everyone, thank you. Thank you so much. We'll make sure that everyone gets the survey when we get it. Again, this is hopefully the first of many. I think it was really great to hear everyone's position on this, those that are competing, and hear from the community, and appreciate all those that participated. So thank you. If you get any questions or you have any of those middle of the night ahas that you go, gosh, I wish I would have said that, please shoot me an email and I'll make sure that Claudia and Patrick get it. Or you can send it to Linda or Catherine. We'll make sure that they get it. So again, we thank everyone and have a great day.
Uh-huh.